Alright, so let's just let this dry, and okay, we'll use this one. Okay. This is going to take a long time for me to work with, so I'm not going to bore you guys. Well, you guys watching me paint these parts, each and every one of them. So, let's just give me some time to work on these, and we'll look at the results. Alright, so the next items I'm going to paint is the red. And the wine red that I'm going to use is the same wine red that I painted on my Full Frontal Custom of the Unicorn. And again, I have no tissues. Alright, we'll just leave it the way it is. I'm bleeding. Alright. Okay, I have my... Since this is lacquer-based paint, I need my lacquer base thinner. Just a little bit here, that's all. Okay. I'm going to use the wetter brush. Let me remove some parts here so that way I can move it over here. Alright, let's see how it looks. It's going in a little light, but I want to do this because watching a recent video of Meccano Man, who just released one on how to hand brush enamel based paint, one technique that I always keep forgetting and I have to constantly remind myself is never assume that on the first pass you're going to leave it the way it is. See, right now I'm doing this watered down pass, which is fine. I'm going to wait until it dries up. And then I'm going to let it dry. There we go. I'm going to let it dry and then give it a second pass. So I'll cake it on per pass. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to oversaturate it. Those were the mistakes I've been making in the past, and I have to constantly remind myself not to do that. I did it with the blue, where I've been giving it a thicker coat. I should have given it a lighter coat. And the cool thing about lacquer base paint, this thing dries a little quicker. Maybe one day I will tackle the enamel base paint. See how that will come out in the future. Alright. Alright, that's fine. Some of the heels. Oh, if you guys are going to buy this kit and you're going to paint it, please remember that some of the parts, there are parts in this kit that you do not need to paint. I just realized that some of the, one of the actual frame parts really did not need me to paint. It was actually an optional part because you have to understand this is actually the Delta Plus with added parts for the Delta Gundam. So you may want to look into, you know, making sure that some of the parts you need and some of them you don't need. I remove all of them from the trees because eventually I throw away the trees. I don't want to throw away the parts, just so I can get out of the way. Parts of the forearm. Ah, yes. This one's going to be a tough one, but I may want to do this. Let me try to do this as light as possible. Remember this? Yeah, you know what? I may have to. I'm going to apply a light, very, very light coat. And then later on I'll cake it on using a thicker coat. Yeah, poor choice of using this for this, but you guys understand what I'm talking about. Alright, let me continue on and then we'll move on to the next part for me to color. Alright, so the next color I'm going to paint is my favorite color, German Gray. Yes. Reviewing some of the parts, pretty few gray parts as you can see here, but reviewing them nonetheless, I realized that some parts I don't need to paint. For example, these little two things. This one right here. And oddly, but surely, this guy. Always review the manual, which I sometimes do and don't. Mostly don't. And make sure that you check some parts that is required to paint, or to use. So, for example, as you can see here, there's an X right there, and these two. There's an X here on the polycaps, but obviously I'm not going to take the polycaps off and paint them. So, that I don't have to worry about. Since this is going to be internal and it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be nicely covered up. So, I'll begin with this guy. As a matter of fact, let me zoom in for you guys to watch. Gray is a great color as not only as a paint, but as a primer as well. I never tried the lacquer-based paint. I'm using Tamiya's gray. I should get myself a bottle of Mr. Hobby's gray, or if they have a German gray, and see what results I can get out of that. Alright, so this one takes care of that. I'll let it dry out a bit, and then I'll pass it again. Let's try something a bit bigger, like this one right here. Again, take your time with these painting on hand brush. Doesn't have to be completely perfect. Sometimes I make that odd mistake of saying, oh, I got it, I'm done. No, just cover up as best as you can, at least like 90% of it. And if it's not 100% covered, you have to understand you're going to go back to that part again and repaint it again. And since acrylic, it doesn't take that too long to dry, I'm going to let it sit for about, I'm still going to let it sit for about maybe an hour or so, and then come back and touch it up again. Alright, so that's fine. I think I have to do this one. Yeah. So we'll just continue on. I'll just continue on, excuse me, touching, finishing up all these parts, and once they're all dried, obviously the next video will be me putting the Delta Gundam together.